Oh, baby, here on a Wednesday, we're going to dust off some old bits here on Locked On Lions. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It's Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast and Network on this, Wednesday, February 22nd and a Thursday, February 23rd. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen. Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network and also the NBA and NFL. Coming up on the show today. All right, I said it in the open. We're going to dust off a classic OB today. Oh, get out the old bit siren. Folks, I'm hoping to bury this one last time. Calvin Johnson is in the news, but it's positive. Nobody ran the Calvin Johnson story into the ground worse and more than this guy right here. Okay, I will openly admit that. I will tell you that I ran the Calvin Johnson story into the ground. I was the one that was telling you about Rod Wood when Calvin Johnson told Jim Caldwell he was retiring, and Rod made the comment about, his bonus and everything else. Did you earn all of your bonus? And it's been how many years now? 8, 7? So Calvin Johnson is in the news as he talked about reuniting with the Detroit Lions. We will get to that momentarily here on the show. Also on the show today, the Carolina Panthers official website took a shot at the Lions. Not once, but twice. It is completely unprofessional and ridiculous. We will get into that on the show today. And many of you are hitting me up on Twitter at Derry Speaks with videos of Tyreek Hill playing video games. I will address it. All of that today right here on Locked On Lions. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On Lions, at Derry Speaks, Matt Derry Facebook fan page. And also, you can check us out on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. I didn't even look at the comments yesterday because I know what was coming. We had issues with the internet where I was recording yesterday. And so the show was a little fuzzy, and I'm sure everybody took shots. I didn't even look at the comments. I look at them every single day. Not yesterday. I didn't have the patience for it. Shout out to those of you that went last night to the Jack Breslin Student Event Center on the campus of Michigan State University. I was there last night cheering on my Indiana Hoosiers. My son goes there. So as a paying customer of IU, I was cheering on my Hoosiers. Unfortunately, last night, they got worked by Michigan State. But everybody in East Lansing, everybody at the Breslin Center, all Spartans were amazing last night. That was a great environment. I was in my red. I was like the only person sitting there in Indiana gear. Nobody bothered me. Nobody heckled me. Nobody threw stuff on me. It was just a fun night, although Indiana played terribly the final 27 minutes of the game. But regardless, shout out to the Spartans last night. That was a good time. All right. Calvin Johnson is back. From ProFootballTalk.com and our buddy Michael David Smith. We've got to get MDS back on the show. It's been too long. Hall of Fame receiver Calvin Johnson finally appears to, quote, be ready to bury the hatchet with the Lions. Johnson was on the Jim Rome show. Rack him, have a fresh take, lunch with the monkey. Remember the old days of Jim Rome on DFN? Oh, man. But Jim Rome had Calvin Johnson on, and Calvin said the following, quote, we're having some good conversations, Johnson said. Mike Disner World. Mike Disner over there with the Lions, he's putting the effort in to bring the two of us together on the same page. I'm excited about him actually reaching out and putting the effort forth to try and make this happen. That's the difference that I have not seen in the past that's happening now. Oh boy. So I'm excited about it because I want to get back around football, help out the team, blah, 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 blah. So it's been years. But COO, Chief Operating Officer, and friend of Raw 222 Rodwood Drive, Mike Disner, who's a carryover from the Bob Quinn regime and era, has apparently reached out to Calvin Johnson. Now we remember, Calvin Johnson had his day in the sun with the presentation, and his number retired. Was his number retired 2 years ago? That was when Sheila Ford Hamp got booed at the game and everything else. So the Lions kind of botched that. But this is a good thing. All right? Let me say a couple of things. Number one, Rod Wood's name did not come up from Calvin Johnson. The Lions know better than to get the Silver Fox involved, the proprietor of 222, all right, to get him involved in this mess. He started this mess with the comment to Calvin years back about his, did you earn all of your bonus, was the first words out of his mouth when Calvin was outside of Jim Caldwell's door telling Jim Caldwell that he was done after that Bears game. That was obviously a huge strike against both Rod Wood and the Lions. Calvin was pissed. Lions went after the money. They wanted their $1.6 million back. Many instances, including Tony Romo and others that have retired, that money has been kept by the player. The Lions wanted to go get it. Calvin paid it back. Calvin was pissed, and that was it. I'm not spending a lot of time on this, but I will say this. Mike Disner is well liked in that building. Mike Disner, I think, eventually wants to be a general manager or a president of an organization. He's here. He's Rod's right-hand man, and it is time for the Lions to end this charade. There's no reason why, when you have a guy like Jameson Williams on your team, and it's August, and it's training camp, or it's July, and it's training camp, Calvin Johnson, coach or not, needs to be there, even if he's just standing on the sidelines in a Honolulu blue and silver t-shirt, to take Jameson Williams aside and say, hey, J-Mo, run this route here. Go there. Hey, when you're bringing your hands in on a catch, any little tidbit from arguably the greatest, one of the greatest wide receivers in the game to ever play the game, you got to do that. You got to have him there. And for the past handful of years, Calvin's been not around. Barry Sanders obviously had the same issue with the Lions. They mended it. He's back. Former players have come back. Dan Campbell's all for it. You know that. So kudos to Mike Disner for reaching out to Calvin. And it sounds like we're going to finally have some restitution, a resolution, whatever it is, to get Calvin around more so that he's helping some of these younger players, receivers, having conversations with them, being a part of the team. It's a no-brainer. And this is where the Lions have dropped the ball for years. You know, the running joke is Barry Sanders retired in his prime. Calvin Johnson retired in his prime. What's in the water down there in Allen Park that, you know, these guys are treated this way? It appears right now under Sheila Hamp, 222, Disner, Spielman, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, that the culture is better and former players and alums are being treated better and Calvin could be back. Let's put that to bed. I'm hoping the next story we read is that Calvin's going to be back. He's going to be a coach at training camp or something. Let's do this. I don't think his number was retired. I think it was his Hall of Fame jacket he got at Ford Field a couple years ago, and the crowd booed Sheila and all that stuff. So, whatever. At least for now, we know this. Calvin appears to be on the mend with the franchise. Long overdue. And shame on certain individuals who botched this to begin with. All right, coming up next, let's get into an organization taking a shot at the Lions on their official website. This was complete Bush League stuff from a team who tried to hire the Lions offensive coordinator. But first, I'm in a better mood because I had a Built Puff today. I had a coconut marshmallow Built Puff for my breakfast from the folks at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, you don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. Go to Built.com, see what makes the bar so good, see what flavors you want. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They got everything. cookies and cream, salted caramel, coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, churro. And what's great about Built Bars is they're good for you. They're like 130, 140, 150 calories, and that's it. It's not like having a candy bar or something like that. These bars taste great. Again, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. You get that protein in the morning, and you're good to go. Check them out at Built.com, and now you can get them at Walmart and the Sam's Club. That's right. If you're close to a Sam's Club, run in, grab that 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. It's Built Bar, baby. All right, so kudos to Jeremy Reisman at prideofdetroit.com. He posted this on his Twitter at Detroit Online yesterday, and I just saw this today. There was an article written on the Carolina Panthers website, carolinapanthers.com, panthers.com, to be exact. And it was about Jim Caldwell being hired as an offensive assistant, special assistant coach to Frank Reich. Now, remember, the Carolina Panthers poached Deuce Staley away from the Lions as running backs coach and Todd Wash away from the Lions as defensive line coach. They've also hired Jim Caldwell, a former Lions head coach as well. And I think Devin Fitzsimmons is going to be their like special teams coach or assistant special teams coach, and he was the Lions assistant special teams coach years ago. Quote from Panthers.com in the article about Jim Caldwell. Quote, of course, the thing Reich alluded to as the biggest hurdle to clear was the one Caldwell hasn't been able to. Despite a sterling resume, Caldwell hasn't been offered a head coaching job since he was, in parentheses, perhaps inexplicably fired by the Lions, end quote. Perhaps inexplicably? The Lions went as far as they could under Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell did not do a bad job. Jim Caldwell is not a bad coach. But how is that in an article talking about Jim Caldwell at Panthers.com? Why are you, Carolina Panthers writer, having a opinion on why the Lions fired Jim Caldwell and called it inexplicably? That's for a columnist at the Charlotte Observer. That's not for a website for a team taking shots at another team at Panthers.com. Completely uncalled for. Oh, but they doubled down. Quote, Caldwell shaped Peyton Manning's career and Dungy's offenses. He has a 62 and 50 record and 5 winning seasons in 7 years. One of the losing seasons was when Manning's neck went out and he was left with Curtis Painter, and 2-14 ensued. The other was a 7-9 season in Detroit, and nobody wins in Detroit. Wait, what? The other was 7-9 in Detroit, comma, and nobody wins in Detroit, end quote. You also won a ring as offensive coordinator in Baltimore. Nobody wins in Detroit? This is coming from the Carolina Panthers? What have you won? I know they went to a Super Bowl once. Or was it twice? Might have been twice. Once with Jake Delhomme and the other with Cam Newton, I think. Yeah. Nobody wins in Detroit. Y'all suck yourselves. You never won the Super Bowl. No. The Carolina Panthers been in the Super Bowl? Yes. But you're the same organization taking shots at the Lions, saying the Lions never win, that tried to hire the Lions offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, this past offseason. And Ben Johnson told you, Carolina Panthers, no, I'm not even going to interview again. I'm taking my name out of the running to stay where nobody wins and be the offensive coordinator. So who's the joke on here? Now, again, you want to read this in the Charlotte Observer or a Carolina blog or something? This is the team website. Nobody wins in Detroit. Dan Campbell just went 9-8 this year. Last I checked, that's a winning record. Wayne Fontes, while he's the all-time winningest and all-time losingest coach in Lions history, did win in Detroit. He took the Lions to the NFC Championship game years ago. Yes, you're right. The Detroit Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. They haven't won. They've won one playoff game since 1957. They haven't won a championship since 1957. Plenty of coaches have not won in Detroit. Plenty have also won in Detroit, too. Jim Schwartz took a couple of teams to the playoffs. Jim Caldwell took a couple of teams to the playoffs. Once in Dallas, once in Seattle. Like I mentioned, Wayne Fontes, Bobby Ross took the Lions to the playoffs. Winning record. Lost to Tampa Bay in the playoffs. I mean, come on now. Nobody wins in Detroit. Nobody wins big in Detroit. But why is that on CarolinaPanthers.com? Memo to the Lions, please don't respond or retaliate or do anything dumb like that. Let them act like fools. They beat the Lions fair and square this year. Murdered them, actually, in that game in week 16. But they take shots at the Lions. Yet, what are the Panthers doing right now with their coaching staff? Oh, yeah. They're completely stealing the Lions' bit of hiring all former players. They stole Deuce Staley and Todd Wash. They're hiring all these former players. D'Angelo Hall's coming on, who never had experience. Who else did that? The Lions. Dan Campbell. I think it's Bush League. So that's weak. And the Lions, please don't retaliate. Just next year, win the division. The Panthers won't win their division. They don't have a quarterback. The Lions do. So I thought that was lame. All right, we're here at the midway point of the NBA season. Tomorrow night, the games get back up and running, but now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Download the app. It's great. You can bet on everything. College basketball tonight, Syracuse and Clemson. Whatever. I'm so mad at my orange. I can't even tell you. This past weekend, Syracuse is like a 1-point underdog to Duke, or maybe a 1-point favorite to Duke. Duke was the biggest lock of all time. You got locks? Go to FanDuel.com. Don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so now is when we get into silly season around the NFL. It's February. We're waiting for free agency to start March 15th or March 13th, I think it is. Get the draft in late April. Love me some mock drafts and everything else. And we talk about mock drafts on the show. And Sam Munson's going to join us from PFF tomorrow, by the way. Sam from PFF tomorrow. So we'll get into his thoughts on everything Lions tomorrow. But people are hitting me up on Twitter, and I get it. And I love the fact that you guys go to Derry Speaks on Twitter and do all this. But who sent this to me? Honolulu Blues, they have their own podcast. And then this guy, Silver Rush, Lucas Larman, sent me this. He says, Matt, Tyreek wants to play with Jared Goff. Wow, Derry Speaks. If you didn't see this, here's our quarterback getting some love. Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins, who's not a free agent, by the way, until 2027, was playing some video games. And this gamer guy asks him, what are his thoughts on Jared Goff? And Tyreek says, Jared Goff? I like Jared Goff. If I had the option to play with Jared Goff, I'd go play with him. Tyreek Hill is not leaving the Miami Dolphins anytime soon. He's like their best player. It's silly season. But here's my point on why I'm bringing this up. It's refreshing to hear really good players actually say they want to come to Detroit. Everybody's ripping on Micah Parsons of the Cowboys for saying nobody wants to go to Detroit. Why would Jalen Ramsey ain't leaving Detroit, LA for Detroit, blah, blah, blah. So people are like, ripping on, Micah Parsons for making that comment. Micah Parsons has made some stupid comments in the past. I'd take Micah Parsons in a second here. But Tyreek Hill giving Jared Goff some love was nice. Yes, it was nice. He's not coming to Detroit unless the Dolphins trade him. He's not a free agent until like 3 years from now, 4 years from now. But it is refreshing to hear really good players say nice things about us for once. Everybody's saying great things about the Lions except the Carolina Panthers website. So, whatever. All right. Tomorrow, Sam Monson from Pro Football Focus, PFF. Sam's amazing. We're going to have him on the show tomorrow. Thank you for watching, listening, right here on Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network. See ya.